Sorry. Welcome, everyone. This is a Community Economic Development Committee meeting, December 16, 2021. Mandy, can you do the roll?
Yes. Mr. Weddleton?
Here.
Miss Allard? And she is here. Miss Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. Peterson?
Present.
Mr. Constant? Mr. Rivera?
Present.
And then for other assembly members not on the committee, Mr. Dunbar? Miss LaFrance? Mr. Perez-Verdia? See, I do see Mr. Perez-Verdia online also.
I think he put in the chat that he's here, so we can.
Oh, okay. Miss Quinn Davidson?
Said she'll be listening, but what may not be able to chat. So
got it. Miss Quinn Davidson and Miss Salatel. Chairs, you have a quorum.
Right, thank you. So we've got a number of items on here, and I think on the agenda, one thing on the ongoing business, we should probably either put a note that those may not be discussed, or because I think people are looking at this and they want to show up. And I see Jeff here, and we hadn't really, which I assume is for the food license requirements and the permit fees, and we weren't really going to get to those today. But since Jeff's here, I think we should give him an opportunity to give us a status report. And I think Kirk Rose had asked about it, and I said, oh, we won't be covering it, so I don't think he'll be here. We put them off to the January agenda. So rearranging the agenda, just since Jeff is here, see if he's got an update, and if not, let him get back to his busy schedule. And then the other items are largely just status reports on things that we've been dealing with over time, and some things that'll be coming to us. So one of those, Adam Trombley here.
Yeah, I'm here, John.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so unless there's oh, hang on, got myself two of us on there. So I wonder if there's no opposition, is moved to this ongoing business section, just to give Jeff a chance to talk, and then we'll go back to the regular schedule or agenda. Here we know. And then if someone wants to get in the queue, go ahead, and I'll be watching the chat. Jeff, do you want to say hello?
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
So we've been working with the other folks there, Kirk and Nick, and a few others. And let me share my screen and I can give an update here. Let's see if I can do that. Let's see this one. So this is kind of what we're working on right now. This is kind of this is the schedule that we kind of currently have in place for the temporary and seasonal foods. And you guys are probably already aware of all of this stuff from the last meeting. But so basically we have two kinds of permits: a regular temporary and then a seasonal permit, which is good for 3 days a week at one location and only for 6 months. So and those are the fees associated with them there. And so, and then over here in the third column is kind of the cost thing. If you do a temporary, a 2 to 4 day temporary event, and then do a seasonal type 2 seasonal, you're going to end up with a $280 fee. So what we're proposing, sorry. What we're proposing is to lower some of our fees, but for a 1 day event, what we're proposing is that if you do a 1 day event, then we would let you upgrade to a seasonal permit and apply the temporary fee you already paid to that seasonal permit. So that way you don't lose the money for doing a temporary event. and then decide a week or two later that you want to do the whole season. So then we'll just apply the fee you paid to that seasonal temporary food permit. And then and so that helps you not be penalized for, trying the market out first and then upgrading to a seasonal permit. And then we'll also be lowering the temporary seasonal permit to taking $50 off to make them cheaper off of each permit level. So, and then the next thing we're planning to do, or we would propose to do, is to this is the one location with the lower fees. And then the next thing would be to have a multi-event seasonal market permit. So this would allow anybody to have up to 3 different markets in a week. It'd be good all year round instead of 180 days. And the way we would track it is we would that would be on the event coordinators to send us all of their all of the list of vendors, food vendors for that week. And they'd have to do that every week. So that way we could keep track of where people are, since they wouldn't be tied to a single location. So that way we could make sure that they're not at 4 places in a week. And then the only requirement would be they have the same menu at every market they attend. So that way we don't have to deal with multiple menus and try to keep track of all that stuff. So, and that's kind of where we're at. I know that Kirk and Nick came back and they say the fees are still too expensive, but I don't know that we can lower the fees any more than we already have to make this work. So, and I think they would like to see up to 3 single permits at a single location at one market. And for us, that becomes a real tracking nightmare. And plus that would let you run for nearly 3 months without having to get an actual seasonal permit, which is not the intent of the single event permit. So so we don't see that as a viable option either. So those are our differences right now. We're going to meet again in January. We're passing some emails around this week about that. So so we're still working towards those resolutions to kind of see where we can fix some of the differences that we have. But this is our current proposal that we have up. So if anybody has any questions, I can answer them.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
Mr. Chair, may I?
Sure. Felix, go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm wondering if, just to assist us with a better understanding of the different scenarios, if we can do sort of side-by-side charts of sort of here's what the health department is proposing, here is what Kirk and his ACLT is proposing, just so we can see side-by-side what the differences are.
Yes, we can do that. So I'm just taking
Great, thank
notes.
All right, thanks, Felix. And this is something I had, Kirk said he'd be prepared in January too. So I think, Jeff, after you guys meet, let me know, and then we can get you on one of the January meetings. Okay,
we can do that.
So I don't see anyone else asking in the queue here. I think one thing making it for a year, I think makes sense. I'm surprised at how many winter markets there are now that are actually fairly popular. So it's not just summertime anymore.
Yeah, and the fee reflects the 365-day permit time too. So, and we tried to make these fees reasonable. They're less than a restaurant permit, but they're more than a one location permit. So we're going to offer 2 types of seasonal permits is what we would propose, is to have the normal one location event, because most of our vendors are going to be one location people, but there are a few who do run more than one markets that will appreciate the new multi-event permit. So we lowered the fee on the single day permit, since now we have another option that might be more desirable for some folks.
So now with event coordinators responsible for reporting, and that's something, a change we made in the last year, I think.
Yeah,
And
well, what we would do is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, maybe flesh that out a bit. Is it working? I mean, does a brew pub that decides to have a market at their location know that they're responsible for making sure they're, the vendors that show up have permits?
Yeah, because we won't give the vendor a permit unless there's an event coordinator application. So, so if they didn't know, they find out pretty quick. And so what we'd have to do is do a little code change there that would require that they report the vendors every week, like 2 days before the event. So that way we have time to schedule an inspector to go out there if we see somebody we need to inspect. And then that gives us a chance to verify our vendors to make sure we don't see the same vendor at 4 markets. So, and we thought 3 markets was pretty good because there's really not that many more than 3 running on a Saturday. I mean, there's a few, but more than 3 would be tough for the average person to get to on the same day.
Okay, well, good. We appreciate your presentation here on short notice. So we'll just, if you get a date for meeting again with Community Land Trust, let me know, and then we'll try to schedule you for the following CDC meeting. Will that work?
That'll work just fine. Yeah, they've got a meeting time proposed in January. Darcy's out this week, so we'll be back on that next week.
Okay, good. And for the world, Jeff is also working at Mass Shelter, so he's spread very thin, trying to
working on all those contracts. Yeah, I'm working on contracts today that you guys need for the next meeting on Tuesday. So
yeah, don't let us get in the way of that. I mean, that's obviously a huge priority for us. So, well, thanks, Jeff.
All right, thanks. I'll see you guys next time.
All right, well, thanks. So moving back to top of the agenda, we've got updates on draft omnibus ordinance for marijuana licensing. So that's a Dean thing, and just a quick status report on that, and then we'll move down to Adam and Ryan Yell stuff. So Dean?
Good morning. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I don't really have an update. I know that we had completed a lot of the committee work and are waiting for my updated drafts ready to launch. And I apologize, it's taken a while. Seems like many other issues keep hitting us fast and hard. So my apologies that it's not finished yet. Let me make it a New Year's resolution, though, to get this to you in January and on an assembly agenda for introduction in January, because I know that we're really close to the finish line. I just need to bring us across.
Yeah, we did get pretty close, and your risk is that we'll start adding more, so you don't wait too long. Okay, any questions from the committee? Okay, you don't see anything. Okay, thanks, Dean. The next one is for Ryan. And just, Ryan, we read in the newspaper that it's a challenging market. Marijuana shops are closing, and I just wonder if you can give us an update on the state of the industry.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is Ryan Yell from the Anchorage Planning Department. And just kind of an overall status update, just throwing up numbers. We've got 35 marijuana cultivation facilities that are approved to operate, approved to have their doors open for business, 17 manufacturing facilities, 46 retail facilities, and 1 testing facility. In terms of folks surrendering their licenses, Mandy might have a little bit more information on that. If folks have gone out of business or decided to pursue other endeavors, and that's just simply because the planning department doesn't oversee the licensing portion of it. I know of perhaps 1 or 2 off the top of my head that have done that, but Mandy might have some more information on that.
Do you know, Mandy, are people surrendering their license when they close?
Yes, we this year had 4 licenses that went away. 3 of them were for one facility, and then one was for a separate facility that was having issues in the location that they were at. And so they have started the process to apply for an entirely new license and special land use permit in a different location.
Okay, so the 4 licenses on one location, would that be, or I'm sorry, the 3 is someone who had, cultivation, retail, maybe manufacturing in one spot?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It might have been 2. It was the Green Light District. So there's the brothers, the Green Light and the Red Light District. And so one of the brothers surrendered his licenses, and so the other is still operating.
Okay.
So it was 2.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, kind of reading that article, sounds like there was a lot of exit from the industry, but that's basically 2 operations, essentially. In one, there were 2 shops basically on the same or adjacent properties, right? I mean, the Green Light District.
Right.
Is that
Right. And my understanding from that, and actually I spoke to one of the board members from the Marijuana Control Board, and it's throughout the state of Alaska. So within the municipality of Anchorage, we have not had very many close. So it sounds like it's mostly from outside of the municipality and the rest of Alaska.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks. I see Pete in the queue. Go ahead, Pete.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I was wondering if there's more consolidation going on. Maybe businesses aren't necessarily closing, but maybe they're selling out to other better established businesses. Maybe is that going on? Maybe Ms. Welsing has information on that. Thanks.
Wait, maybe go to Mandy. Are you seeing that in the licensing? Is those would come to us, but generally we move by those fairly quickly and not have the broad context.
Yeah, that's correct. The transfers come through the assembly. So we have seen some of that. There's been a few licenses that have transferred over to different owners. And there has been a handful that have consolidated into a bigger establishment. So I think, the one is RC Tenderbox is the main one that I can think of that Great Northern transferred their licenses and has them now. But there's been a little bit of that.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Felix?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, I guess a couple of points on this. I think Mr. Peterson asks a great question. I guess sort of a follow-up to that is, how many establishments are sort of close to closing, a few months away from closing, either because they are so far, they have so much accrued back taxes that they aren't able to pay, or any other rationale. And then I'm also curious, to what degree is this sort of market driven, or are there regulatory issues? I know the article in the ADN, I believe it was, did talk about some regulatory issues, but so far I haven't really seen too much discussion about sort of the market and how that is driving the competition. So would love to sort of get a sense of that. And that might be, some of those might be Weltsian questions. Thanks.
Yeah, well, we'll give it Ryan or Mandy. Do you have any thoughts on that?
This is Mandy with the clerk's office. So for the renewals, what we've seen, I currently only have one establishment that holds 3 licenses that still has deficiencies upon the review of their renewal application. And it is mostly taxes, fees, or fines to the municipality, to different departments. Otherwise, I haven't had any others that haven't paid. But as Felix said, that doesn't necessarily show that they're close to closing. They were just able to pay what was due currently.
All right,
And through
thanks.
the chair,
On
that
cultivation. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ryan.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize for the interruption. Just with the day-to-day operations of marijuana establishments, the license is much more closely tied to that than the special land use permit is. The planning department's involvement really only comes into play during the initial review of the special land use permit, and then if there's any enforcement action that's needed after that. But that being said, Mandy's much more in tune with the day-to-day operations of marijuana facilities than I would be. So I honestly wouldn't be able to speak to which ones are close to closing or, kind of pondering that situation. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. So who's in charge of the map that's online then? So if operation closes, how does the map get changed?
So through the chair, that would be me. I update that map as any changes are necessary, whether that's a facility that closes down, whether it's a new facility that submits an application, and then track the status of that application throughout its process.
So do you get updates then from Mandy when someone turns in their license? Or?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Oh, good. So state of the market. I see Ms. Weltzing is here for any questions. Do you have a moment? You have insights from a different direction. Maybe you can share.
Sure. This is Jana Weltzing for the record. So in Anchorage, I so far haven't really had any clients currently closed down or getting close to closing down. I mean, I think we had, Danish Gardens had closed down, had some back tax issues and whatnot. The article that came out, I mean, I think that article really focused on like one situation that is not indicative of the entire industry, and that's a situation in Fairbanks with a taxpayer that got pretty far behind. So we're about 10% in past due taxes for cultivation for the whole industry. So like out of all of the taxes that are owed, about 10% are in past due delinquent kind of status. So that's where we're at right now for the cultivation excise taxes. I would say, in Anchorage, we're heavy in retail, not as heavy in cultivation because, the valley is a lot easier place to do cultivation facilities and the build out and whatnot. It just makes dollar cents more to produce out there. So I haven't really seen too much. I mean, we do have cultivation here, but I think what a lot of the industry is looking at is the limited cultivators that are kind of, struggling because they don't have, economies of scale, and they kind of need something like a distributor's license, which we're working on, which would kind of like source all that product and deal with all of the hassle of trimming and packaging and the compliance costs that go with it and the testing and then the distribution to ultimately to retailers. It's kind of tough to do all that if we were just a limited. And I think, and Mandy can probably correct me on this, but I think we only have about 2 or 3 limited cultivations in the Muni. But she would know better than me on that. So overall, the industry is still healthy. The pound is still between $2,500 a pound to $3,500 a pound, depending on the percentages of test results that come out. So overall, pretty healthy. I mean, I think we're clearly seeing a saturation issue. I think we have to be honest about that with ourselves, that, there's an incredible saturation issue, especially in the Midtown Spenard area of Anchorage. For retails. So overall, the industry is still healthy. The tax structure needs to change because, we're more and more cultivators are coming online, producing more and more product, but yet we have this stagnant price floor of $800 per pound for marijuana. So it needs to be able to not be that stagnant, not moving price floor because, in most states, $800 a pound is the cost of the product itself. or less. So, you know, to really start tuning it in and getting ready for federal legalization and having a chance to compete with other states, we're going to have to work with the legislature to work on that tax floor, that $800 a pound. But overall, I think, you know, we're doing pretty good. I think people are, you know, operating pretty responsibly. There is consolidation happening. And you'll see more and more of that. I've got a couple of those items kind of going through the pipeline right now where there's folks consolidating, merging together, creating, you know, big cultivation in the valley, creating a network of retails in Anchorage, you know, so that's happening. It's maturing. It's a natural evolution.
Well, good. Well, thanks. So distributor license, what's the status on that?
So it's an idea that I came up with, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months ago, just talking to clients. I kind of like articulated the concepts and the ideas, and then I was like, oh, well, that sounds like a distributor's license. And we have that in other states, like Oregon has it. I think Washington has it. I believe California has it, but California is so crazy that, you know, I just don't even, it's hard to even make sense of that market. So basically, what I'm going to come up with a more formal proposal for the January MCB meeting, but basically it would be kind of like your K&L ODM model, except we wouldn't have those prohibitions on ownership of, you know, retail, like package stores can't be a distributor, right? A bar license can't be a distributor. We're kind of going to have to move past that concept, that barrier, because we didn't do distributors licenses from the beginning. So we're just going to have to be able to make it, you know, available to anybody that really wants to get in the game of distributing. And I think it's going to be a really interesting type of license if it gets approved by the Marijuana Control Board. So, you know, it's just a concept. It still would need to be approved by the Marijuana Control Board and then signed into law by the Lieutenant Governor. So it's not a for sure thing. It's just an idea that the industry is kind of wrestling around and thinks it could be a really good tool, especially for the folks that are smaller producers that need kind of somebody to go out there and peddle their product. You know, you got a lot of retired, you know, cute old couples that are in the limited cultivation game, and, you know, they don't really want to go hop retail to sell their product. So a distributor would really help them out. So hopefully we'll get the idea formulated, and hopefully the board will support it. And then maybe in the summertime, we could see some kind of license take shape. Hopefully, you know, again, it's all up to the Marijuana Control Board.
Okay, appreciate that. That sounds typical of industries to have distributors. So I see Dean Gates has his hand up. Dean, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just curious, Ms. Wilson, since you mentioned the tax and tax structure, and I know you're talking about the states, but was there any sort of comment or feedback or interest in from the industry side and looking at the municipalities' retail sales tax on marijuana? Or is that thing working just fine?
Yeah, so through the chair, this is Jana Waltzine again for the record. Dean, that's an excellent question. And, you know, one thing that really caught the industry by complete surprise this year was the cost of the bonds that the muni, you know, the financial office of the muni required on retailers. You know, it was a $10,000 bond before when we all first started getting going, all my clients started rolling. And then all of a sudden this year it was $250,000 bond for some of the retailers, and then some other ones it was $90,000. And some of these bonds, I mean, it was darn near impossible, you know, to get. But, you know, eventually folks were able to figure it out. But it was really, really expensive. So no negative feedback on the 5%. I think that's working just fine. Nobody seems to have an issue with that. It sounds like to Mandy's point, I think she made earlier, that doesn't seem to be any real outstanding, and Mandy can correct me if I'm misstating this, any outstanding debt owed for the 5% sales tax. But we as an industry really, really got hammered with that, the wild $250,000 bonds that the financial office, the CFO office of the muni required, and then some of them were $90,000, and there wasn't a real rhyme or reason that was articulated to the industry for the change, and it just kind of seemed like it came out of nowhere. So that was difficult.
Oh, if I could follow up on that.
Yeah, please do, Dean.
Yeah, and thank you, Ms. Watson. That's very interesting. That reminds me too of the bond issue. It's not unique for everybody's information. Requiring a bond for the Treasury Division under the Finance Department. It's not specific to the marijuana industry. All of the other self-reported sales tax areas, the room tax, the bed tax, the tobacco tax, and now the alcohol tax, they all do require a bond or a letter of credit or something that sort of secures if they are unable to pay the tax. For example, business is going under or doesn't submit its last taxes. There's this bond to cover that. And so all these other industries also have that bond requirement. As I recall, when the marijuana industry got launched 2016-17, there wasn't any basis for figuring the bond amount, you know, because no the history of sales and how much sales tax would be due. And so I think that's why it started low at the 10,000 level. But now the history and data collected over the years, I think that's sort of the result received. The bond is based on some average amount of predicted sales tax per quarter, per month, or something like that. So anyways, I think that maybe the alcohol tax that was implemented might see something similar since it was new. Maybe after a year or two, they will see some actual bond amount requirements that reflect more closely what the actual sales tax they're collecting are. Anyways, thank you. That is good feedback from the industry, but it does sound like, although difficult or almost impossible to get, that they've mostly all figured that out. I mean, if there's some real barriers that that this body can recommend policy or code changes for, we're certainly interested to hear from the industry. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Dean. Janet, could you tell us what does it cost to get a $250,000 or $90,000 bond?
So I think the $250,000 one was close to like $20,000. I think it was like 17-ish. I don't have that exact number in front of me, but I remember being in that ballpark. And then the $90,000 one was around like 10,000, 10 to 12,000. And like, I definitely understand that it is, you know, we expected the bond because it was in the code. We knew it was there. We just didn't expect like without like much understanding or real notice, a 250, like an increase of so much. I mean, it was 25 times what the requirement was the year before. So it's quite the jump.
So that would be $17,000 per year to have a $250,000 bond.
Something, yeah, something around that number is like 17 to 20,000 ish.
Wow, that seems high.
It is high. It is high, and it, you know, and these are high risk businesses, right? Because they're, you know, technically still federally illegal. So you know, it's you got to find the insurer that will provide it, that will take on the risk, and then you pay for the risk.
Yeah, that's a lot. I appreciate that. Right, so. Is that Dean?
Oh, yes. And I also wanted to mention for that bond requirement, I believe it's only required once. I mean, as long as it's held current, if you get it from an insurer or guarantor, of course, you need to pay whatever premium they might require. But the bond with the Treasury just needs to be in good standing and maintained. You need to provide it once. So it's not like every year you get something new unless you're paying a private insurer or guarantor. So there's a couple of different ways to provide the bond. And Jana, I wonder if any of the licensees have taken advantage of that. For example, one's a letter of credit or deposit in escrow, and those can come from a financial institution, a bank, if they just maintain the balance. In escrow, they wouldn't have to pay those 17,000 a year premiums for an insurer. So there's other ways to reduce the cost of meeting that requirement. It's, you know, section 1250, 160.
We don't have access to banking in Anchorage. So there's no banks in the Anchorage municipality that will bank a cannabis business. The Valley has the Mac Valley Credit Union. Their charter got approved in the Valley, so they're able to bank a bit in the Valley openly. And Mac Valley also has provided banking to the Fairbanks municipality. Their chapter or their charter expands into the Fairbanks and to the Matsu Valley, but not into Anchorage. And so Anchorage shops do not have marijuana banking options, openly marijuana banking options.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's interesting.
So it's another disadvantage, for Anchorage. I just wish we could find some ways to provide some tools. And also, it's not good to have all this cash. I mean, well, we all know this, so.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think we know that, but for my part, it's kind of moved on. I hadn't really given much thought to it, but I see that's still an issue. I'm surprised that Matt Valley is doing it, but that's good prototype for us. Okay, thanks. So any more on this in the committee? All right, well, thanks, Ms. Weltzine and Dean and Ryan. So moving on, I have on the next item 2022 goals, but I'd like to skip that if there's no complaints, and then move on to D and E and let Adam Trombley and whoever he might have with him just talk about some things that are in the pipeline. The 181 fund, which we talked about a bit when we were looking at the budget, and maybe define that and tell us the status, and then the status of a couple other items that are working their way through the system, code changes. So Adam?
Sure, yeah. So for 181, right now we are looking at the end of 2020, we were about 11 million in the red. I know during the assembly meeting about a month ago, someone had said that CARES Act was used to bring that back up, but we're not showing that action. So unless there's something different and you guys have an ordinance that you can show me, I would appreciate that, but we don't see anything in the system. The numbers I have, and I'm just giving you the 2020 actuals, and because when we look at 2021, there's going to be some discrepancy, and especially going into 2022, there's a considerable amount of discrepancy because many of our fees are based on assessed value. And last night I found out that the assessment value of things are jumping about 25%. And so, whether that's a house, a parking garage, whatever the case is, those values are going to jump 25%. So the numbers I have now are actually inaccurate as of last night. So I don't even want to share those with you. Plus, we have several rather large projects coming in. In fact, we have one where their permit fees alone are going to be about $500,000, and that's just on one of their projects, and that's not going to be reflected in your 2022 actuals or 2022 estimate. So I'm hesitant to do this. We are going to be in the red for 2022. There's no doubt about that. But I think with the valuations jumping 25% with the large projects that we have coming in, I'm going to have to revise these numbers, and I'm happy to share those with you later on. And unless there's any questions with that, I can jump on to the Title 21, 23 changes.
I think there'll be a few questions. You got one from Pete?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Adam, we've got this infrastructure bill that passed and federal funds will be coming our way. Are we expecting more projects to need to be permitted here this year because of that funding?
But through the chair, it's difficult to say, Mr. Peterson, because we don't exactly know how those funds are going to be distributed. We've had internal conversations with that. We're not sure if they're going to be grant funded and how that works for us. We would like to think that that's the case, but I'll give you an example. I had a chance to sit down with Wolfgang, who's head of our region for DOT, and he said that they're going to end up having to, because a lot of the money is grant funded, you're going to have to apply for the grant. So the state is a very formula driven organization, meaning, miles driven, miles of road, you get X amount of appropriation, federal, there's a whole host of that. And the municipality, to a large extent, when it comes to federal funds at times, through AMATs and stuff, is also formula driven. So we don't have grant writers in-house that can do this. So we'll probably have to contract that out or find grant writers in order to compete. So I'd like to say yes, but it depends on how we compete with our grants. That also being the case with the infrastructure, that doesn't necessarily mean that these would be going into Fund 181 in the building service safety area, because it doesn't mean that there would be, commercial construction, residential construction. But again, I don't know all the details of that infrastructure bill, but I would assume if we do get money, then we would see, road repairs, bridge repairs, those kind of things. But I'm not sure how those flow into 181.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So any more questions from the committee? See, Crystal, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to see if Mr. Trombley would repeat that number that the in the red, please.
Sure, the
I heard that right.
Sure, the 2020 actual was 11 million in the hole, in the red. That being the case, and I know you can't dig yourself out of a hole, but I do believe that we're going to see positive traction coming into 2022 with the work that we have and the valuation increases.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't see anyone else. I had a couple questions on that. And so we're in the red. So I think what we're saying is that at some point it had built up to a certain amount and then that money was taken away.
Well, in 2007, it was negative. I'm sorry, I cut you off there, Chairman. Go ahead.
No, well, I just, my understanding is it was built up quite high and then it was taken away. I think as far back as the Begich administration, and then we just haven't refilled it. And if that's wrong,
yes.
Correct?
No, you're correct. At some point in time, I believe it was 07 or 08, somewhere around that time period, the fund was decimated. The assembly took the cash out of it and allocated it to, I don't remember what it was. In 2017, I've gone back 4 years. We were in the whole 4.8 million. 2018, 7 million. 19, 9.5 million. 2020, 11 million. So it's been a pretty dramatic decrease.
Okay, so I think what we're hearing, so we have this fund and the goal there is if in some year, the permitting or the building safety service area, with all the departments under that, are not covering their costs, then you can borrow from this fund to cover it. So you don't have broad swings in hiring and so on.
Well, the original purpose of the fund, was that you would have this fund that would fluctuate based on construction permit fees coming in, right? So you have this boom year and, oh man, you know what, we can't maintain, we can't do all the inspections we need. And I'll just use inspection. I'm not picking on inspections, I'm just using them as an example. And this is true for the permit counter, structural inspectors, electrical, plan reviewers, all those kind of things. And so the idea was that, oh man, it's 2017 and oh man, this is a huge boom year. We've got tons of money flowing in for permits. We can hire 15 more inspectors. Well, then the market tanks in 2019. I'm just throwing these dates out there. And all of a sudden, man, you know what? Now we're half of what we were. We need to lay off inspectors. We need to lay off plan reviewers. We need to lay off these people because we don't have the work for them. And so then you would have this fund that in theory, and I think this was created under Maestrom, but in theory would fluctuate and your staff would meet the demand of the market. And it's hard to say what would have happened had it not been rated, but we are where we are. And so I mean, even if you laid off everybody that was funded by 181, you'd still be in the red. So that's certainly not the answer. And I'm not claiming that is the answer, but it's going to be a slow process to reverse this trend. And I think we're headed in the right direction. I do feel confident in that, understanding what projects are out there.
So what would be an ideal dollar amount then, that fund, to just kind of, it takes the peaks and valleys out of your staffing essentially? Is that right?
That's a great question. Yeah, you're right, because it would never zero balance every year. You're correct on that. I don't know to take. I'd have to probably get a further historical trend other than 2017. I should probably actually go back to 2000, and that would give me, and I can get you an answer for that. If I went back to 2000 to look at the actuals, that would give me a good idea of peaks and valleys.
Yeah, it'd be worth a look because, I think most businesses do that, have some, and the city does, right? We have really good savings plan. It's really helped us out the last few years. But you don't want too much, right? You want just enough.
Right.
So, if there were 10 million in there, my gut feeling is that's fairly high. And at that point, this is raised within the building safety service area. So it seems like it should benefit only that area. So to use those funds outside of that, I think was inappropriate to the extent that was done. But, if it gets beyond whatever dollar amount it might be, say 5 million was a sweet spot, who knows? And you start getting to 6 million, well, then you think either rebate fees that were paid or just cut the fees for a period of time to get in a balance there. It just seems fair to people who are part of the building safety service area. It's just like a road service area would do the same thing.
Yep.
And I think that's ultimately the goal. So I'll move on. Dean's got a question. Go ahead, Dean. And Chris, I see.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I thought I would just add a little historical perspective on this. The Fund 181 is related, correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't envy Mr. Trombley the position he's in and to figure out how to keep that fund stable and the inspectors employed and paid. That's a challenge for sure. But I have to speak because I've worked in the Department of Law years ago during the Begich years and the Sullivan years after. And I think it was around that time there was a fundamental change in terms of the revenue for the 181, the Building Safety Service Area Fund. One of the big change there, and this should factor into how you analyze the historical fluctuations in the amount in that fund. I think it was basically that we do have a service area, and usually the purpose of the service area is to collect some tax revenue to support the services provided. But with the building safety service area, it's a little unique. It stop me if I start going down the rabbit hole too far with how this thing is different. But we had levied, I think, a very minimal and very low mill levy for this service area. And it was a mix of revenues from the permit inspection fees and that very minimal tax revenue. But in the Begich or beginning of the Sullivan years, they started to zero out the mill levy collection. So no tax is collected from properties in the building safety service area, property tax. Was changed to be fully a fee-based arrangement, fee-based revenue stream. And so I think that if you look back to 2000, you will see a big, maybe difference, and that might be one of the big explanations. But like I said, that's like 10 years ago. We've been doing this fee-based structure. And I guess, as you can see, it tracks the market fluctuations a lot more. So like I said, the challenge for Mr. Trombley. Anyways, I hope that helps with a little history.
No, I appreciate that.
Okay, Crystal, you had a question?
Thank you. Yes. Well, I appreciate the history, and certainly I appreciate Mr. Trombley's comment that the fund is on the right trend, or things are being done, to try to put it on the right track. But it seems to me that to a certain extent we've sabotaged that a bit with the way that we approved the amendments to the budget when the entire department was trying to basically right size itself according to the trends in the economy. So I guess my question is, so if we think we're on the right trend, does the additional employees that were put back, the positions, I should say, do the additional positions that are put back into the budget not impact that already, $11 million deficit?
Sure, through the chair, I would say, everything's going to impact it. If we laid everybody off, then that would be an impact. If you added 50 more people, that would be an impact. So, yeah, to answer your question, it is an impact. What's the result of that impact? I don't have that right now, especially with the new information that's come in recently. This isn't going to be fixed in 1 year. It's going to be a multi-year. It's going to be a multi-year process where we consistently have to reflect on what's our need, what's our valuations coming in, and make those decisions. So to answer your question, Ms. Kennedy, yes, it has an impact, but is it dramatic? I don't have an answer for you.
Okay, thank you. So it's obviously something that's going to be monitored on a normal basis. So I can appreciate
Absolutely.
that. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Crystal. Thanks, Adam. So I don't see anyone else in the queue right now. So Adam, you had mentioned there was a question about CARES Act funds being used to shore up the fund balance. My recollection is we cut the permit fees 25% through at least 20. And my recollection is we expected that 25% be covered with CARES Act funds to keep the department on a whole. And so I don't know if that was actually done, because I think we've seen in the budget, we said, but we had less permit income because of that 25%. And I don't recall seeing items showing revenues from CARES Act. Do you know anything about that?
So I don't see anything of an injection of money through CARES Act. Not to say that it's not there. My guys don't see it. But if I could get, the ordinance or the appropriating the money, then that would be helpful for me to track it down. You're correct about the 25%. So that certainly exacerbated the problem, but I don't think that was a bad decision by the Assembly, considering the market and COVID and all that kind of stuff. I think it was the right decision to make. But the other thing is that that 25%, when we came in July, people had not been paid for their 2020 credit. Their 2020 25% credit. So you are also seeing in our 2021 projections, you're seeing, and again, this is a projection, but you're seeing a larger, how do I say this? A larger deficit, because we're paying 2020 credit. The credits that you allowed in 2020, we had to refund those out of the 2021 budget because it was never done in 2020. I don't know what folks were doing, but they weren't providing the 25%. So we had to go all the way back and provide people credit and go through and dig through and see all the people that had permits and then refund them money. So that's reflected in 2021, and that we are all caught up now. So you won't see that next year. So that will be an additional help to the fund. But as far as making it whole, I don't know if, again, I'm not saying you guys didn't do it. I would like to see the appropriation so that I could track it.
No, it's interesting. I think on the Assembly side, we would assume it's being done, but it is likely that in 2020 that fee cut, if it was applicable for the whole year, there would have been, done late spring, early summer. So you'd have all those from first half of the year to deal with. So they could have lagged. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I believe you guys made it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you guys made it retroactive as well. So what we had to do is we had, if you say you passed it in April 1st and you made it retroactive to February 1st, well, then they had to go back and look at everybody that pulled the permit for those 2 months and then issue them a credit, which was And I can't remember when you guys did it, but we also had to do that. So that took a considerable amount of time, and those were never done. None of those were done. They are now, but they were not when we came in July.
Yeah, that sounds like a possible scenario. Well, that's interesting. Okay. Well, that's something to look for. I don't know where the CARES Act funds you would draw from would be, unless, I mean, we pulled 6 million out recently, so there's 5 million left. I believe, somewhere that we're hoping to use for other things. A lot of demands for the money we have, but it would seem there's something, if we did pass an ordinance that CARES Act would cover that, we should do that, of course. So it's worth investing.
Yeah, and again, if someone could do that for me, I'd really appreciate it if I could find that appropriation.
I'll look into it and see. There was a lot going on back then. So
oh no, absolutely no, and
to be able to find.
I agree.
So okay, well, thank you. So, any questions on this from the committee? I don't see any, and we might. I see Bill Taylor here. If we could, we have some time to maybe someone from the industry might have some comments on it. I'm pointing at you, Bill, but there might be others.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I do have a thought, because one idea that I've kicked around over the years that may or may not have any merit is to use a portion of the interest that's earned on the municipal light and power sale to refund and to smooth out the peaks and valleys in the 181 fund. I know that there's severe restrictions on how that money can be used from the sale, but I think the interest would be, you could use the interest without legal hangup to regenerate that 181 fund. From the industry side, we're still fairly bitter about the $6 million raid back during the Begich administration. That would go a long way to help solve the problem that we're facing now. And I think that would be a somewhat novel way to solve the problem. And I'll just throw that out there as an option.
I appreciate that. And for the recording, that was Bill Taylor. Thanks, Bill. Did you bring any friends, Bill, who are here? I can't see the whole list.
I think I'm the sole member from the industry today.
Well, thanks for coming. Okay, well, I think we're done with 181 fund for now. But Adam, when you do get better numbers, whenever that is, let's go ahead and take another look at it.
I'd be happy to.
All right, thanks. So we look for a status report on the big Title 21 or Title 23. I guess we have a big Title 21, then also the smaller with the curb and the cleanup standards, and then Title 23 is a fairly big one.
Sure. So the rolled curbs you're going to see on your agenda for Tuesday, and the Title 21 changes. They've been heard by the Planning Board. They've been heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Both have recommended unanimous approval for both, and staff is finalizing their recommendations. I think Ryan is still on here, so if I'm misspeaking on the process, Ryan, please feel free to cut me off at any time. But I think it should be before you guys. Title 21 should be before you guys in January. I'm not sure which meeting in January. Hopefully the first meeting, at least for introduction, and then the Title 23 changes, those were approved by the building board 2 or 3 nights ago, and you'll see the 23 and the 20, and that was approved. You'll see those. My goal is to have both of them on your agenda at the same time, 21 and 23 changes.
Okay. Any questions from the committee?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Crystal.
Thank you. Adam, is the intent then to have it on the agenda sometime in January? Is that what you're basically
Yes,
saying?
ma'am. Yeah,
Okay,
through
well,
the, yes, ma'am.
I do know that the Chugach Eagle River Advisory Board is planning on meeting the first part of January. So I'm kind of asking the question time-wise, you know, just in terms of what kind of time period is really available for them to work with before you actually have this stuff ready to go in the larger forum. Thanks.
Yeah, through the chair, Ms. Kenny, if you want, I'm happy to send both of those ordinances to you and you can share it with them. But if we have it for introduction on your first meeting in January, it wouldn't be voted on until your second meeting, whenever that is. And I'm not sure when they meet, but it sounds like that would give them enough time, even if they didn't get the ordinances in advance, to at least discuss it, review it, look over it, and ask any questions. So I'm happy to send it to you, send you both of them.
Okay,
Or,
all right. No, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
okay.
All right, thank you. Felix, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess a couple questions sort of along the same vein as Ms. Kennedy. First is, has drafts of these omnibus ordinances, have they been presented in any community councils?
Hey, Ryan, maybe you can speak to this. I believe we send all of these to the FCC. Am I correct, Ryan?
Through the chair, this is Ryan Yell. So any text amendments to Title 21 are actually sent to every single community council within the municipality. Out of all the community councils that received a copy of the ordinance, we only received comments from one, and that was the University Area Community Council.
Okay, so if I'm interpreting correctly, then you're saying that the text amendments have been sent to the councils, but there hasn't necessarily been any presentations made to the councils?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. And the expectation from the administration is that this is put on the agenda January 9th with a vote at the subsequent meeting. Is that the expectation?
That's what we would like, yes.
Or,
personally, that's what I would like, yes.
I meant January 11th. So okay, so January 11th for introduction and then January 25th for vote.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. That's it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on the timing of it when it gets before the assembly. We're just waiting for Planning and Zoning Commission and the Plating Board to officially adopt their findings. And that's going to occur first week of January at the regularly scheduled PZC and the Plating Board meeting. So once I have those documents, I'll be able to submit it back to the assembly and get it rolling. I had a question on timing. If it'd be able to get it before the assembly on the 11th, given that it would just be submitted that first week of January, or if just process-wise, if it would have to be kicked to the 25th.
Well, there's always, I know you guys don't like laying items on the table. There's always that option. I don't know what if it would be on the addendum either, because I believe that these already came before you once and then you guys kicked them to P&Z. So it certainly wouldn't be a surprise if you did see it on the addendum, which I know you don't like big items on the addendum, but it wouldn't be a surprise that you saw it coming.
I don't know that we had the cleanup standards and the curb came to us, and then we kicked them to P&Z. But the bigger ones that you've got, I don't recall that those came to us. I think you guys submitted them through the Planning Commission, Building Board.
No, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry. I was confused. You're correct.
And I would be nervous on these having I would want probably in any case, even if it were on the addendum, give at least 2 meetings for review, because 2 weeks shuts out community councils pretty solidly. And some need 2 months, where they have to introduce it at one meeting so they can discuss it at the next and then go over a resolution that comes out weeks later. And I don't know that we could screech things to a halt like that, but I would think it's more reasonable on this to go, introduction and public hearing 2 weeks later. What does that do to your schedule, Adam?
Well, these are changes that the community's asked for a long time. But I want it done right. I want it to pass. And so, I'm certainly willing to be flexible. I think as, we move into a construction season, it would be nice to have these done. But whether it's done in the first meeting in February or the last meeting in January, I don't necessarily think that that's a substantial difference. But I want it done right. And I want the community to feel as though they were involved. I want them to make sure that they have their option for community involvement, all those kind of things. I certainly don't want to do anything that's going to disrupt the community, and they feel comfortable with the changes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Now, I think on the curb and the cleanup standards, that has been making the rounds because I've gotten some feedback on those, but the bigger ones are the issue. And now in the Title 23, the building board did not support some of the changes. So what will be coming to us?
No, initially they didn't. We've been back to the building board several times for clarifications, and we did remove some stuff. So I'll confirm, but I'm pretty sure we got unanimous approval for that for when we went the last time.
Okay, so so you went back and revisited some of the issues, and then
Yes.
Position.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, we wanted to do it right. Building board had issues, challenges, concerns, and so we revised, met with staff internally, changed some things, went back to the building board, did additional clarifications.
Okay, good. They had. I went to a couple of the meetings and I thought it was pretty good discussions, but there wasn't necessarily staff there that could help flesh it out. So it's good that sounds like you got some backup there to help.
We
out.
did.
Okay, good. We'll look forward to seeing that. Anyone else from the committee got questions? I don't see anyone. I do know if Bill Taylor is still here, you were at a couple of the building board discussions as well. Do you have any comments on this?
Not really, Mr. Chair. Thanks. This is Bill Taylor again. I did attend a couple of the meetings and there was a lot of back and forth. It was helpful that Ron Thompson made the second meeting, and I assume there was some internal massaging of the proposals in order to get it in a form that was unanimously approved, because there's a lot of confusion, a lot of pushback, but I think it sounds like Mr. Trombley and Ron Thompson got things in a form that was acceptable.
That's good. Thank you. Okay, so I think we've got one. Thanks, Adam. And you might stick around for this next one. So we've got this last item 2C, which is 2022 goals, and just wanted to kind of check with the committee and see if anyone's got some issues coming up or things that you'd like to see. Crystal?
Thank you. Trying to get a cup of tea here. Yes, I actually would like to see if we couldn't put something toward, an effort toward updating the Chugach Eagle River Comprehensive Plan. We talked about it for several years, that it's past due. So I think I probably need to put that on there as a goal again. Thanks.
Well, I think a starting point on that then would be, some estimate from the planning staff on what that would cost and a time frame for that. That would have to get in the budget somehow. Did you have anything else, Crystal?
No, not, that's just always something that's on the kind of, the top burner for me. So anyway, I'll leave it at that for now. That's the only thing I can think of right now. Thanks.
Thanks. Felix, got anything?
Yeah, I don't have anything sort of area wide. I'm not sure if this committee is interested in getting any type of updates as Meg and I work through the Midtown Partnership development process with ACDA. But otherwise, yeah, I don't have anything at the moment, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Well, thanks. Well, on the your Midtown partnership, is that under any committee now?
No, it's not under. There are no reports or any type of other structure that would fit under a specific committee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good luck with that. Do you have boundaries for it?
Oh, that's all part of the process. Scope and
Okay.
boundaries and mill rates, and it'll be a lengthy process, we think.
There are times where Midtown boundaries are extended into Spenard, and some people in Spenard find that culturally offensive. But if there's money involved, maybe a yes or a no. I'm uncertain.
In the end, it will have to go to a vote to actually create it. But yes, I think the idea is, and we've actually had discussions with Spenard, the community council. The idea is that it naturally will fit a little bit into the Spenard area, and they are okay with that idea.
Good. Thanks. Pete, you got anything?
Mr. Chairman, not right off the top of my head right now.
Okay. And I don't know, Chris Constant, he's off. Jamie is listening intently, but mute for the moment. And I don't have anything specific. I think a lot of our stuff is ongoing. There is a broad notion that our the core document to our comprehensive plan, Anchorage 2020, has passed that date, and that there's some stirring in the community to create a new core document. And if that follows the pattern of the previous one, it takes a couple of years of the community stewing on it, and then eventually things slowly get going, and we may see that coming up. And Jamie confirms that she's listening. Hello, Jamie. And then Cameron, you're here. Did you have anything?
Yep, I'm here. No, nothing to add at this point, but I will likely have something in the near future. But I'm good now. Thanks.
Okay. I don't know other members here. Chime in if you're here. Okay, don't hear anything. Okay, we'll keep things in mind. You know, I know we passed the budget season, and some of these things bring budget issues, and others are just to start. You know, process that can take, you know, many months. You know, a lot of what we do might start with this committee, might go to the assembly, but certainly a lot of the code changes would go to the planning commission or building board, as we're seeing now. So, and then Adam, if you're still on, you know, obviously you've got a lot of plans and that you're working on now, and keep us apprised, and we'll definitely fold those into the agendas. Okay, so that finishes our agenda. And we've got audience participation. If anyone, oh, Felix, is that you?
Yeah, thank you. You actually made me think of something else, Mr. Chair, so thanks. You know, it would be interesting if there is room and interest in this committee to continue to explore the viability of the TED project, the old TED project, and the possibility of resurrecting that. I have had discussions, some initial discussions pretty early on with Mr. Trombley on that, but you know, that is something that I know previously there was a lot of interest in, and hopefully we might be at a state where that project can be resurrected. I know it would be very wonderful for the economic development of the city. Thanks.
Yeah, that is a really good point. I mean, that would be huge. And, you know, from the AMAT side, we've seen discussions of, Dean is asking, the Tudor Elmore development project, Dean, that was fairly grandiose, that had a new health department building there, along with a grocery store and offices and housing and so on, just north of the permit center. We saw at AMATS, we saw a proposal for a road which would connect Elmore heading west, so that you'd have kind of wrapping around that development, and you'd bring in, I think at I forget what that street is called, Piper, would go around towards Piper. And that would impact what you could do on that property substantially. And it's something that we really wouldn't want to do in a vacuum. Plus, since that initial proposal, now we own the old Tozier track, which is fairly large and would also be an opportunity for development there. So I think things have changed a bit. But on the other hand, as you know, if we move the impound lot there, or the evidence lot, could change it as well. So there are a lot of moving pieces. So, okay, well, thanks, Felix. Okay, hearing nothing else, audience participation. And if there's anyone out there, I think, do you hit *6 and then you can just identify yourself? Hearing nothing. Quiet audience today. Okay, I think we're done. Motion to adjourn.
Move to
So
adjourn.
moved.
All right, thanks everyone. See you at the next one.
Thank you.